Co-main event, heavyweight division, Alexander Volkov with a submission, Dominic, the Ezekiel choke over Tai Tuivasa in round two. Not a lot of people probably saw this one coming, but I do think this fight delivered. I think it did. I think it was a pretty fun fight, especially for a heavyweight fight. When you get out of the first round, you start getting a little dicey in terms of what you're getting. And I thought this fight was pretty great. I think both guys made good account of themselves. Like obviously Volkov felt like he was a step ahead the whole
Mhm.
time, but there was intrigue throughout because you saw Volkov was getting much better with the hands. Like he was just like a missile with that right hand. Every time Ty was trying to close that distance, trying to throw something of his own, Volkov was countering well, keeping his distance well. He was doing all that very well. But Tai Tuivasa's leg kicks, man, were adding up. You saw Volkov needed to adapt to that, and he started trying to catch him, and that's when
Mhm.
ultimately the sequence on the ground happened. He caught a leg kick. Ty fell on his back. Volkov was able to get the full mount, and I thought Ty, for considering what we've seen of Tai Tuivasa previously, I thought he showed a better account of himself while being in such a compromised position there. But obviously, you have a 6'7" behemoth on top of you. It is not easy, and getting caught in that choke was probably not something he really saw being set up. I mean, an Ezekiel choke is not, Tai Tuivasa is no expert on the ground, and then you're
No.
being thrown in the choke like that. Like it's tough, for Ty to lose three in a row. But Tai Tuivasa is in that position of guys before him, the Cowboy Cerrones, the Derek Lewises, where it doesn't really matter. Like he's still gonna be a big name on any card you put him on.
Mhm.
As much as I would have loved to have seen him win here, because I think it would have been electric, the shoeys would have been flying left and right, and obviously I had a bet on him as well. I think he performed well in defeat, much better than he had in his last two losses, and for Volkov, he was just technically a step ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the third Ezekiel choke in the history of the entire company says all you need to know about this fight. When Volkov is on, he's fucking good, man.
Yeah,
Like
dude.
he's really, really good. And now he's won three in a row. Probably the best three performances that he's ever had in the UFC. And he's lost to guys like Curtis and Gane and Aspinall. He's going to be number 6, number 5 come Tuesday morning. 34 years old, I believe. His physique is unrivaled, really, in this heavyweight division. I'm not saying he's going to go chase a title, but if he can just keep performing like these last three, it's not crazy to think he can get to a title fight or he can upset one of these guys. Like he
Mm.
really is skilled. It's just a matter of not only putting it together, but putting it together consistently, performance after performance. And maybe this could be the start of that. This is his biggest win ever if we're talking like name value, co-main event, pay-per-view in enemy territory, but the fans were still cheering for him. He wasn't booed or anything. Like I would like to see Volkov just reach his true potential. And if so, what does that look like? We've not had an idea of what it can
Mm.
look like, and I want to see that for the former Bellator champion.
That's an interesting assessment, Dominic, because I think it is a little steep to say like he could challenge for a title. I think we've seen enough of him. I mean, he's been fighting in the UFC for a long time at this point. I think, we had kind of already talked about with Gon, what was that last week,
Mhm.
where we see the levels in the heavyweight division. I don't think this one over Tuivasa puts Volkov like in that bubble spot where he's like maybe in the top tier, maybe in the second tier. I mean, he's lost to those guys ahead of him to the point where I just don't think that he is a championship caliber heavyweight, but I think he's a damn hard guy to beat for anybody trying to move up into those ranks. So I think his ceiling's already been hit, to be frank. I mean, he's got 10 losses in his MMA career. He's a
Mhm.
former Bellator heavyweight champion. He's had his downs, he's had his ups in the UFC. Trying to find the right matchup for him moving forward is kind of tough because he has fought so many guys.
Mhm.
Maybe you run back that fight with Derek Lewis from 5 years ago. Derek got a big win. It's sort of a similar matchup on paper to what you had here with Tuivasa. And I think that would be a pretty big fight. That was one of Volkov at that time, that loss really hurt him because if he had just finished out that last minute, man, I mean, who knows what he could have done at that time. But no, I do not think any sort of challenging for a title or being in a championship fight is in his future. I think he's pretty much is who he is. He is very good in the right matchups, but when you start talking like the elite of the heavyweight division, those guys are much more skilled than what we've seen. Some of these guys like Tai Tuivasa, Derek Lewis, some of these guys, or Pavlovich, they're much more skilled. They're much more athletic, which is a big thing because Volkov does have such a size and reach on most heavyweights. So no, I do not see him ever being in that position.
And he is in that lingo state because he's lost to 3 of them, and a lot of them are booked. The only other fight that really makes sense right now, without a foreseeably long wait, would be a Derek Lewis rematch. Maybe something that a lot of people never saw coming could line itself up.
Yeah, and I think that's a big fight, like on a fight night headliner, or they probably even put that on a pay-per-view, to be honest, just because that's kind of par for the course for Derek Lewis nowadays. But meanwhile, I think Tai Tuivasa Sergey Pavlovich is a very interesting fight.
Sergey Pavlovich?
Oh, sorry, Spivak.
Okay,
sorry,
I was like,
the Sergey is always because Pavlovich Pavlovich already knocked out Tai Tuivasa in like 40 seconds. So
I like that
Spivak.
fight.
I think that's a very interesting fight because Spivak gets that fight to the ground, probably curtains, but he don't act like Tai can't do some things he showed improvements on here and implement that against Spivak with the leg kicks, and I think he'd have more success in trying to find that overhand and stuff. I mean, that's a very interesting fight, and that is very much if the UFC plan or maybe are already in kind of works to maybe go back to Australia at some point, at beginning next year or at any point next year. And maybe originally they were like thinking Izzy might be a part of that card, and now it's kind of uncertain because he lost the title. Maybe you put that down to a fight night, but you put Tai Tuivasa and Sergey Spivak top of the bill. I mean, I'm not always an advocate for the heavyweights getting those main events, but hard to find a name bigger that you could put on an Australian fight night than Tai Tuivasa.
I'm signing off on that one.
Okay, Dominic, give me one more on the undercard that stood out to you. A name, a fight, storyline, what have you.
125-pound fighters are the funnest fighters in the world. Manel Kape, Felipe dos Santos, fucking unbelievable. That shoot box guy, by the way. So it figures if they come in with the blonde hair and train with Charles Oliveira, they don't know what boring fight is. They don't even know have that word in their vocabulary. Man, did he hold a good account of himself against a number 10 ranked Manel Kape, but skill for skill, probably better than a top 10. I mean, he's been scheduled to fight 17 top 5 fighters, and they've all been canceled in the last year, and he holds his all. That was an incredibly impressive performance by Dos Santos. He earned the right. He deserves the right to literally fight another top 15 fighter in his next fight. That's more a regular training camp and stuff, if you will. But Manel Kape, we got to keep a fight together for this guy. And the fight that has to stay together is clearly him and Kai Kara-France, because the heat, it's like putting your fucking hand on a boiling hot stove. It's there. The tension's there. The rivalry's there. The built-in storylines are there. That's a fight you have to do as a 5-round main event on a card. Hopefully, knock on wood, semi-soon or at the beginning of next year. Manel Kape, Kai Kara-France, flyweight violence.
Yeah, that's a fight night main event. 100%.
Yes.
That's 100% where that should be.
Yes.
Give these guys their due, right?
Yes.
Kai Kara-France has proven he can do it. He did it with Albazi. He's kind of, I mean, he was like the biggest star at Columbus, it felt like.
Yeah.
Manel Kape deserves that kind of opportunity because he's, like you said, man, the guy's been trying, and you can sense the frustration.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Which is kind of a good way to segue into kind of my my undercard takeaway. The F-bombs just flying on this card. Man.
Yes, they were.
If you would have told me that we would have heard two, what do you call them, homophobic slurs on this card, and neither one of them came from Sean Strickland winning the title.
Sean Strickland had the most normal post-fight interview of everybody on the card.
Man, I don't know what was up with this card, man, but that thing was flying around like it was 2005. And I was like, damn, what a sport. It's going to get talked about a little bit. They asked Dana about it, post-fight press conference. It was funny when Manel went up there and whoever the reporter was like, yeah, Dana was in here. We were asking him about it. And he said that you were sorry for making that comment. I just wanted to confirm that you are sorry. And then because I don't think Dana said that. I think he was talking about
Charlie.
But when Manel heard that, he's just like, yes, very sorry for saying that. Like you could tell he was kind of like, all right, let's just I'm surprised that you didn't see him put a tweet and just copy and paste Radke's
what Charlie put,
his post. But yeah, man, what a sport. Obviously, we shouldn't use that word in public, but it's fun to kind of make fun of it just because if you heard any any role player for an NBA team just letting that fly at halftime interview, he'd be gone in a second. It'd be the world would be burning down. The man would be completely blackballed from the NBA. This is the only sport where that stuff can fly. And I don't know if that's
I don't know why. But I don't know why.
I'd rather I don't even know if it's worth trying to get into some of the socioeconomic factors that might make that more prevalent, but it was just wild. Like after the first one, man, I was saying something about, I put a tweet out there about like, just like we all expected, Charlie Radke, I guess. And then when it happened the second time, I was like, oh my God. Like, and man, it kind of sucks that happened with Manel Kape because
the promo he was cutting was
because him and Kai were really getting into it. Man, Kai was doing the like
the place was going in nuts, the crowd.
Dude. That fight, I felt like that was going to be perfect, like video package material, and now you're going to have to kind of cut it short,
they're going to have to do some editing on the production team.
Yeah, man. And Manel, he was a big winner though overall for this fight week and everything because he did not back down from Israel Adesanya at the press conference. Which I thought was like, I was kind of like, fuck yeah, dude. Like if you really feel that way, like colorful language aside, if you feel like, fuck him for dropping out of this fight. Don't just because a guy bigger than you, just because one of the biggest stars gets up and tells you to shut up or whatever, don't back down to him either. So I've respect. I just thought it was fucking badass to just go at Izzy that way. And then they asked him about it at his post-fight presser, and Manel said he had the receipts, man. He's like, he told Sean that he needed to be paying attention to Pereira when they were going at it. He's like, maybe he should have taken some of his own advice, So definitely hits a little deep there. So shout out Manel Kape, man. We've been big on him since he got signed. Seemed like for a while there it was it stumbled out the gate, but we're here. We're back. We're back on the Manel Kape train.
Yes.